Hi, this is Seton from Wild Rose 911. We've had a lot of people ask us about maintenance and that, so we decided to do a tyre change or a wheel change to show people how it's done, in case you're ever stuck somewhere and your cell phone's out of reception, you can't get hold of AAA. Pretty much every car has a spare wheel and the tools in it to change a tyre. So we're going to show you how to change one on a Crown Victoria Interceptor. This particular one has the beautification package. So it has the plastic wheel nuts on, which holds that cap. So we need to take that off first. So those aren't the actual wheel nuts for the car. And on most jacks it actually shows you basically where to put the jack when you jack the vehicle up. But it has a couple of things it doesn't tell you. And the first thing is, if you're changing a rear wheel on the back and you jack the car up at the back, then your park position doesn't work, because once you take one wheel off the ground, that allows the car to move. So what you need to do is you need to put the emergency brake on, which locks the other wheel up, and I always recommend that you chock the front wheels. And basically, here's some rubber chocks we use, but you can use pieces of wood, even if you have to, perhaps big rocks, and that then prevents the car from rolling away on you and the jack falling over. We use big jacks in the workshop here because we have them, but your standard scissor jack, and that stabilizes your vehicle so you're not going to roll away here. And so you have your jack. And on the Crown Victoria it has this wheel brace as well, and that clips onto the jack there. So we'll take the lugs, the plastic lugs off first, which holds your wheel cover on. So you unscrew these a little at a time, and that keeps them inside the cap here. And there you have your plastic wheel cap off, and then you have your real steel lug nuts. Now the bar they give you here is quite handy. If you're a smaller person or your lug nuts are really tight, what you can do is this is an old mechanics trick. You can actually use your foot to get more power than what you can put on with your hand. So you push down with your foot to loosen the lug nuts off. And then once you have the vehicle jacked up, then you're not struggling shaking it around trying to undo a really tight nut. And I'm using this tool just to show you. Normally in the shop here we would use air tools, but to make it more realistic for you. So that's your nuts loosened, so you know you're not going to have an issue. And this jack here, you have a square frame, and this would sit on the frame, and then you would put your wheel nut handle in there, and you would wind it up like that to raise your vehicle. But for safety's sake, we'll use our big normal jack we use in the shop here. But that's how that would work. So your handbrake's on, your wheels are chocked, you've taken your cap off, you've loosen your nuts off just slightly so you're not going to be struggling with it up in the air, and we'll just slip the jack under it here. And what you're looking for is you're looking for your steel frame. Here it is right here. So you slip your jack under there. And like I say, we're using the workshop jack, but if you were using your jack that comes with the car, because it takes a little while to wind it up because it's on a thread. But it's always safety first. And even when I'm using a workshop jack and I'm going to be under it or have anybody else under it, I always put an axle stand under there. So we have an axle stand there. Now, just in case something should happen, an earthquake, somebody bump into your car, your jack go bad, it's only going to drop an inch. So you're never going to get pinned or trapped under a car. I have seen this happen. I've seen people use bricks and stones and pieces of wood and crazy stuff to jack vehicles up. That's a recipe for disaster. So you want to make sure at any time, if you should have a failure, that this vehicle is not going to fall down on you. So we then go around here. Of course, you just make sure you're in a safe place when you're changing it to. You know, if you're in traffic, you want your 4 ways on. And then because we've already loosened off the wheel nuts with your boot, it sort of makes it easy to then loosen them off a little more, and then you can take them off. What I normally do is just loosen them all off like that, and then spin them off. So here we go, here we're just spinning it off. Now there's a couple of things to look for. If you've never done this before, there's a couple of traps here. The first one is to make sure you look at your wheel so you know which way your wheel goes on. I've actually seen people driving down the road with the wheel on back to front. It will actually go on, but man, it's a rough ride because it's not set up right. And the next thing is your wheel studs. I've seen people put these studs on back to front. Not so much this style, but the style that doesn't have the thread there for the cap. I've seen people put them on like that, and what that does is they come loose if they're on back to front. So the pointy bit always goes towards the wheel too. So let's just spin this off. And basically, if you just follow those few basic rules, you're not going to get yourself hurt. You're not going to have an unsafe vehicle. So you're going to make sure your wheel goes on the right way and your wheel nuts go on the right way. And you may be laughing, thinking, how can you put a wheel on back to front? I saw a late model Mercedes going down the 5 freeway with the wheel back to front, with the lug nuts back to front, and it had a 50-year-old man driving it. I actually managed to pull him over and explain to him quickly he was going to kill himself or somebody else on the freeway, and I actually had to help him redo his tyre change because he'd got a puncture about 10 miles back and he changed it himself, and he was a businessman that obviously didn't know a lot about vehicles, but he actually had, unbelievably. So off comes your wheel. You take your wheel from out the trunk and you put it on. And this is how that gentleman had his wheel on the car, believe it or not. He put his wheel on like this. So he had his wheel on like that on the front, and on this particular Crown Vic you can't do it on the back, and then had his lug nuts on back to front like that, driving down the 5 freeway. And obviously he didn't even compare what he already had on the car. So it sounds stupid, but if you don't know, you don't know. So the wheel only goes on one way, which of course is this way. In fact, let's do a little exercise here. Let's simulate a jack failure. As you saw, I put a stand under it. Most people don't. Say if something was to happen here and the jack failed. See how little that car moved? So that's why I always recommend that you always make sure safety first. That axle would have been on the ground if it didn't have that jack stand under it. Or you can use your old spare wheel. You can put your spare wheel like this and just put that under the car. That's going to do the same thing. So it's always safety first. Over the years that I've been working on race cars and shops, I've seen things that are pretty much unbelievable as far as accidents go. And sometimes the simple things are what get you. So here we are, we're pretending this is out of the spare. So we put it back on there. Make sure it's the right way. Check your lug nuts. Pointy grooved end in first, square end to the back. And what I always do is I always hand put the nuts on their first few threads. And what that does is that makes sure you never get them cross-threaded. Sometimes in shops when they're using air guns, they can cross-thread them for you and ruin your studs. And like I say, normally we would use an air gun, but just for the practice, we're just showing you how to do it with the brace here. Now when you're doing them up, you don't do one nut up super tight and leave all the others loose. Then you do an offside nut, and that because the wheel has a locator here, which actually makes sure the wheel's perfectly in the middle, so you don't go down the road sort of bumping along there. So you just tighten these up. As you see, it's reasonably quick to do. And if you're on a freeway, of course, you want to try and get a nice place where you're not in traffic and in any danger. You might be lucky and get a nice CHP officer that pulls up behind you that puts on his lights, to give you a little more visibility and protection. But the bottom line is safety first. Always chock your wheels, put your emergency handbrake on, have a look, see how the wheel looks before you take it off. Make sure you put it so it looks the same going on. And what you do is you bring these nuts to where they're firm, then give them like a and you should have about 35 to 40 pounds torque on them. If you're a big boy, you just do them up basically like that. Perhaps if you're a smaller lady, you might want to just get your foot out again, put the wrench on and give them a little kick with your foot, how I took it off. So that's basically how you do a tyre change. We'll put the cap back on, of course, screw it on. We can take our emergency jack stand there, which could be the old spare wheel, anything like that. Let it down, pull the jack out, and you're all ready to go. And then basically put your cover back on. Don't forget to take your emergency brake off and your chocks, and then you're good to go. I don't think I need to show you how to put the cap back on. It's pretty self-explanatory. But that's how you would change a wheel safely and properly. And don't forget, safety first. Always chock your wheels. Put something under there in case you have a jack failure. If we were using the screw-up jack, it takes a little longer to screw it up, but they're a smaller jack. If the vehicle moves, it could topple forward. But if your wheels are chocked, your brakes on, that's not going to happen. Thanks for watching, and check out our
YouTube channel, wildrose911.com, for other hints on car maintenance and safety, and we're happy to be able to help you out. Have a nice day now.